I'm going to pick up again from this amazingly erudite and articulate man, Terence Mckenna, continuing to talk on the nature of creativity in us. And I found a segment now at about 30 minutes, 28 minutes, where he begins to talk about contemporary culture, modern art, abstract expressionism in particular, and I must say I really appreciate the insight he has to this movement called abstract expressionism and how he articulates the connection he sees between our history, primarily the medieval history, the shamanistic awareness of our existence, the magical quality of our lives, and how he translates the art movement into that concept. Now, before he gets there, I want to just draw attention to one thing he comes up with regarding history, and this is something I've been very interested in. I'm working on the 7-volume set by a fellow called Anatoly Fomenko, revealing that history is not what it actually seems to be in terms of the way it's been handed down to us. Now, Mckenna comments on this. Let's hear what he has to say, just very briefly on this.
And one of the most disempowering things that has been done to us by the male-dominant culture is to brush out our footprints into the past. We don't have a clue as to how we got here. Most people can't think further back than the first Nixon administration, let alone, the arrival of the Vikings, the fall of Çatalhöyük, the melting of the glaciers, so forth and so on. We have been disempowered by a rational tendency to deny our irrational roots, which are a kind of embarrassment to science, because science is the special province of the ego.
Okay, this is beautiful. This is something that I have been feeling and suspecting and understanding and realizing as we reflect on the history that we've been told. We tend not to be able to really, well, for one thing, Fomenko says we don't have any physical evidence of the things that are being asserted by scholars. We really don't have the physical evidence that goes past maybe 800 CE of the Common Era. So this is a really important concept. I'm going to pause for a second because there's somebody coming. Interruption finished. Nephew came in and I had a little chat. Decided to light up a Cuban, and but now we're going to continue. And what I want to next segment, Mckenna is going to talk about a sense of responsibility. I like to feel it as an urgency, as a kind of not a pressure, but a sincerity of the implication behind making art. He's going to talk about this. Listen to this.
So, how seriously then are we to take this, I'll call it an obligation.
This is good, the obligation.
To follow the shamanic thread back into time. Well, I think that it is a matter of saving our own souls, that this is the real challenge. I love to dig at the yogins by saying nobody ever went into an ashram with their knees knocking in fear over the tremendous dimension they know they were about to enter through meditation. Still truer and more sad, still more true and more sad, is the notion that very few of us pick up our sculpting tools or our airbrush with our knees knocking with fear, because we know we are invoking and acting with the muse at our elbow. And somehow I think the artists need to recover this sense of mystery. one of the most depressing things to me about the art scene, and I had
I'm gonna let this go.
to reconnect with this because I was just in New York, is it now has a kind of directionless quality. You can go into a gallery and you cannot tell whether it is 1990, 1980, 1970, or 1960, because a kind of eschatological malaise has settled
the end
over
of time.
Art. All notion of any forward movement toward a transcendental ideal has been put aside for the exploration of idiosyncratic vision. And
Okay, first point that he brings. When is the last time the artist sort of approached the work with a sense of importance, that what it is you're doing, you can't fuck up on this. You got to do it right. You can't just screw around, throw a little bit of stuff up in the air, see how it comes down, and wherever it lands, that's art. You know, the idea, the notion that everyone is an artist. This is another thing that's coming out of the modern movement. People don't understand modern art. The modernists were not everybody can be an artist. Andy Warhol, everybody has their 15 minutes. No, he nailed the fallacy. He was exposing the fallacy in people's minds. He acted the fallacy. He was the fallacy. This is his gift to us, Andy Warhol, not his work. I don't really appreciate whatsoever. Okay, there is some ingenuity in the way he presented it, but the concept behind Warhol is that you bloody retards, you know, you all think you're an artist. No, it's a very special thing that you practice. So now he points this out. When are your knees knocking about doing the thing that you're going to do? And he continues to talk about the direction of art being mainly an idiosyncratic expression without any roots in anything. It's kind of like flailing about. Things are flailing about all over the place, and this is the direction, the flailing direction. Maybe this will be the flailisms, you know, that we're going to head in, that we've been in for the last 30 years, flailisms. There are very few exceptions. You know, some of the art being produced is going to last, I think, but the majority, 99% of the stuff that's been presented to us in the last 50 years, it's all for the recycle heap. Yeah, it's mostly. So let me just pause and we'll continue. He continues now with, to his ability, in his framework. I've mentioned before, he's not a visual type. He's a type that sits back and smokes or ingests mushroom and sits and has the ethers, you know, working on his brain, and then he comes back and he spouts. And I appreciate it. I like this, some of the spouting, but he hasn't got a clue. I'll tell you, Terence Mckenna is totally clueless about visual art and how it is produced, what's behind it all, but he has a concept of our greater vision. He is addressing, his topic is addressing how we fit into this sort of supra-consciousness. Rupert Sheldrake and the morphic wave, the idea that we're part of something much larger than ourselves, and we represent that kind of ether, that, you know, the good artists represent being part of this greater ether. They're being fed. Artists, the great artists, are being fed. They reveal through being in touch with the ethers. Now he goes into this a little bit. Let's see what he has to say.
And in the application of this notion to the art problem, I would say what we need is a situation where schooling, if you want to put it that way, or a tendency toward a coherent vision expressed by many artists is spontaneous. Each artist imagines that they are pursuing their own vision, yet obviously they are in the grip of an archetype which is rising through the medium of the unconscious.
This is the idea that I just mentioned about the being connected to something larger and reflecting that greater partness. Now, how does it relate to abstract expressionism? He's going to go into this.
Now, the last time we saw this in American art was in abstract expressionism, which was probably in terms of the values, in terms of tension and the amount of emotional gain between one artistic moment and another. The break between abstract expressionism and what preceded it was the most radical break in American art in this century.
American art.
Abstract expressionism actually carried us in to a confrontation with what the quantum physicists were telling us, that the universe is field upon field of integrated vibration, that there is no top level, there is no bottom level, that the ordinary structures of provisional space-time are simply that if we can rise out of the human dimension, then we discover these larger, more integrated dimensions where mind and nature somehow interpenetrate each other.
Now, do you see how he's weaving this kind of fabric of you have an expression of a visionary kind of thing called abstract expressionism, and how it is supported in this fabric, in this complex texture that is our I like the idea of ether. So it comes out of, he gives it a lot of credit because he says it's rooted in this magic, this shamanism, this kind of thing that is all-encompassing us. And these particular artists, you know, de Kooning, Frankenthaler, Motherwell, people that were somehow picked up this thread and were weaving themselves into this thing. Now I'm going to pause for a sec. I cut it off a little early because the last 10-15 seconds he talks about the fact that in the modern contemporary art movement, particularly as far as I'm concerned, there isn't the integration. He talks about the fact that you can integrate this larger being of ourselves, not the ego, and on the other side you have the expansive everythingness, and the dimension of ego and ourselves is not integrated in any kind of art expression at this point in time. It's been completely sort of destroyed by the notion that everybody's an artist, whatever you do, you know, you shit on the sidewalk and you're an artist. So just a little last 15-20 seconds of this segment, and let's see what he says.
We discover these larger, more integrated dimensions where mind and nature somehow interpenetrate each other. A vision like that, a coherent vision, has yet to announce itself here in the post-history, pre-apocalypse phase of things. Well,
post-history apocalypse, what Kevin Blanche calls post-ignorance, a brilliant concept as far as I'm concerned. Post-ignorance being that part of us that develops or becomes recognized as important and crucial that has been denied for the last, I don't know, you put a number on it. When did it start? When did this collective denial, this collective, you know, hiding and putting your head in the sand, when did that start? You know, there's probably a pivotal moment. I haven't identified it. Maybe there are people that are able to identify this period where things kind of shut down and we became automatons of design and decoration. So leave it at that for now, and maybe I'll pick it up after. This is a very brief segment. I'm going back to Mckenna at about 36 minutes, 46 seconds is where I'm going to start it if you want to keep track. And he's going to talk about this sense of transition, of a very limited creature called human being, what Kabbalah calls bags of blood, the Adam, the Aleph in the Dalet Mem, or Dam, which is blood in the Hebrew scripture. He's talking about extending ourselves through the psychedelic experience, which I have to say, I've never had a psychedelic experience. You do a bit of smoking here and there, but it's never been, you know, on the front page of my desire. Anyway, he talks about this as, now what I want to point out about Terence Mckenna is Dr. Heal Yourself. Terence Mckenna died of some kind of a brain cancer at the age of 53, very early. And I'm going to be a little cruel here, and I'm going to say, Dr. Heal Yourself. Whatever it is that you were engaged in was very detrimental to your personal health. You as a person were suffering, you suffered an early death. So whatever pronouncements he makes about the psychedelic experience, I believe actually ruined him. And this is not the objective. The objective, yes, you sacrifice yourself. You become a kind of visionary that is also a martyr. You give up your life, your pleasure, your desires, whatever it is that you're enjoying for the cause. However, I think that the thing that you are proposing destroys you. There is a flaw. There is a flaw. It's not right. Listen to what he says.
And this orthogonal domain, to my mind, is glimpsed most clearly in the psychedelic experience.
Now, the orthogonal domain meaning complexity to zero. In other words, it's so overwhelming. We are so overwhelmed. Orthogonal is like some kind of reduction of complexity to clarity, understanding. So what he's saying, the psychedelic experience is providing us with that facility to complexity to zero. Let's see.
Psychedelic experience shows you more art in an hour and a half than the human species has produced in 15 or 20,000 years.
Okay, and it also blew up his brain. So now here's the thing. Whatever this erudite individual has been able to bring to us is, I find him quite fascinating and interesting. This person is very important to the continuity of our becoming. And now here's what I feel. I have an intrinsic sort of a DEFCON 1 warning system on certain things. And one of them is the psychedelics he's talking about. Now I can't really opine on this. And I will be chastised by people that have experienced it, but all I'm saying is his brain blew up. Now it's like disease, dis-ease, whatever it is that the body represents. I mean, when we get sick, it shows we're vulnerable in some way. We've ignored something. We have given something up. Yes, there are things that are external forces that are extraordinarily powerful, but I have an idea that, or my concept of disease is something that we actually allow ourselves to have. This flies in the face. This flies in the face of what they call congenital diseases, or things such as forces that come from outside, like radiation, what we're facing now. These are actually forces acting on us as sovereign beings that could destroy us. Now, I'm saying, I was friends with a naturopath for a while. I haven't talked to him for a while, but he was convinced that anything that is entering our bodies can be fought, no problem whatsoever. The worst of the worst, salmonella, Ebola, things that enter our guts. The system we have inside of us is so powerful against any bacteria or virus that there is virtually no chance of anything to live inside us. This is the brilliance of our history, our genes, that we fight everything. We become vulnerable, we become weak. And my point now with Mckenna is that there is a weakness in this man's argument because his brain blew up. So however much he expresses his dedication to psychedelics, I say, you blew your wad. You have to actually, you have to find a way to sustain yourself for the time, you know, I mean, 53, I think he was. That's too early. Okay, well, it's too early. Who am I to say what's too early? You know, children die in, after a few days, after months, a few years. So the point is, maybe his mission was done, but you do not convince me of psychedelics because your brain blew up. Now, he claimed that the psychedelic experience makes up for 15,000 years of art. You know, I can see it. I can actually, it's sort of like a compression of a lot of things that, you know, it's like a teacher can teach us stuff. We don't have to go through the trials and errors and all the problems. I can see that. And the art he's referring to, I would actually to some extent say isn't really countable. That, okay, 15,000 years of art, he may have to refine that. He says it's an incredible claim, but he may have to refine that somewhat because I believe that there is an essence in every fabulous work of art that covers what he's talking about. He's saying the psychedelic experience covers 15,000 years of art. Well, I'm saying that if you are confronted by something that is absolutely marvelous, you cover 15,000 years of art when you look at that artwork. It's not restricted to the psychedelic thing. He seems to be just focusing on this, and which is his expertise, and he was brilliant. I'm sure he was brilliant at that thing. But don't discard what I do, what colleagues of mine, what people, what my extended family from hundreds of years ago have done. No, you can encapsulate that with the art as well. You don't cover 15,000 years of art because it's a thing. You're like in your brain. He's in his brain. He's like stuck in his little brain cells. He's like in his body. Artists, painters, they externalize this thing in a successful way. Everybody externalizes stuff, you know? It's like, I hate the idea, religion, God, some entity in the, wherever it is, you know? No, it's inside. But as artists, we are able to, through the techniques that we've developed, externalize this thing. This is an incredible power to externalize it that he doesn't recognize.